So I think we can start. Hello, everyone. Sorry, Manchu. So this is the past computational element working group session, the first one of the two that you can see summarized here. So first of all, people on site are supposed to wear masks. So the picture is too far to check if everyone is doing it, but I guess Harry can have a look at that. And there are some available at the registration desk, if I understood correctly, if you need one. So please try to follow that, people, for safety of everyone. Okay, so usual, not well. This is an IETF meeting. There are rules about IPR. You're supposed to follow them, reward them. Sorry. Okay. So make sure you are aware of those rules and that you are following them. Most of the things you do when contributing to the IETF is subject to some IPR rules. So supposed to be aware of all them and make sure that you wrote those references here. You read them. Okay. So there are many people remote again this time. So the tool that we're using to share remote session is a new version of Mitico. There's a new Mitico client that may help people on site, but for most people remote, I think the heavy Mitico client is still the one to use. Make sure your audio is off when you aren't supposed to talk to avoid glitches. We have a queuing rule there. There's a single queue that mixes both the light client for people on site and the usual Mitico queue for people remote. So make sure that even if you're on site, you join the queue from Mitico. That will help the chair to control the queue and give the floor to people in the proper order. In case of issue on site, Harry is over there. You can see him sitting on the desk. So be gentle to him. And he will be the one taking over in case of issue for remote chairs. So the usual links. So if you want to go over the agenda and other useful information, they're in the slide deck. Usual guide of conduct within the IETF. I hope everyone is familiar with them. Nothing new there, but make sure that you are familiar with them. So Javanav are remote again. Hopefully this will reduce in the upcoming meetings, but we're still remote. Harry is there. John, our AD, is already there in case of strong issue for the session on site. So Harry, on top of being on site, will be in charge of taking notes. So if you want to give him a hand, there's the link here to the notes at IETF.org. Feel free to add your own notes, especially in case of mix-up with names, or if something you may have said on the mic isn't properly noted in the minutes. Your contribution is very helpful to the total notes of the meeting. We have a tight agenda as usual, so make sure that we are following the time. Some usual reminders. We know that following the various lockdowns, travel constraints, the involvement in some work in the IETF is not the same as before. But working group still needs some involvement to make sure the work progresses efficiently. So please try to be vocal as much as possible, especially at adoption polls, working group last call, document reviews. The IETF working group documents need some people to be involved all along the process. So make sure that when you're involved or interested in some topic, you voice your opinion, contribute on, even if it's more remotely than it used to be for some of us, it's still very important to make proper use of the mailing list and get involved into the threads on the mailing list. There is the new Zulip tool for the chat, so it's tunneled to the Metico chat there onto the former Jabber service so far. If you want to join using the Zulip client, it's another way to chat with the working group. Okay, the agenda. Hopefully no one wants to bash anything from the agenda. Okay, so consider it's okay. So keep in mind that only half of the time to the PC working group is today, and the other half will happen tomorrow. Working group status. Okay, there is no new varieties in the last IETF meeting, but the working group has been progressing some document anyway. One of them has been in the RFC editor queue for a while and is waiting for a reference to another document. This is something that will progress in the near future, so no fear there. This is supposed to be resolved in the coming months. 3 other documents are within the AD's hand with some publication requested for association, for extended flags on stateful GMPLS extensions. So those were sent to the IESG and will progress hopefully by the next IETF meeting. Other news from the working group, you may have noticed that today another IPR disclosure was sent to the PC mailing list. It's about flow spec RFC. So we need to have a look at this disclosure. If you have concern, please use the mailing list there to start discussing. On 2 other were sent earlier this year. One of them is about a working group draft about multipass, and the other one is about the IFIT, which is on today's agenda. Early allocation. So you were aware that the IETF has an IANA early allocation code point policy. We have several documents that have been following this process to get early code points for early implementations. So we have those 4 already identified within the IANA registry for the required code points. Some were already renewed depending on the progress of the document within the working group process. If you believe that your specification requires some early code points for some interrupt testing, early implementation, and so on, please contact the chairs, and we'll share with the working group to gauge about the consensus on triggering the early allocation policy for each case that we receive. Document status. Do you want to take the floor, Drew, from there?
Let me get back the slide control. Yes. Hi everyone. So let's just talk a little bit about all the working group documents that we have. And I would also urge the authors to join the queue if they would like to add something and give an update to the working group. So first, we have a document that we have recently done a working group last call on, that is the local protection enforcement. Currently, it is waiting for Shepherd review. It's in Julian's hand, so you should be expecting the review of this pretty soon, and then we will be sending it out to our AD. PSEP Yang, we have a recent update. This update handles the second Yang Doctor review that was done for this document. As a part of Yang Doctor's review, there was a section on objectives for this Yang model, and this was found to be a little repetitive and pretty standard, so we moved it to appendix rather than to the core of the document. There was a comment on PSEP MIB that since we borrow a lot of elements from PSEP MIB, it would be good to have a clear relationship. So we have added an appendix where we have relationship between the PSEP Yang and a PSEP MIB, so which would be quite useful. We did change some names of the leaves as per the Yang practices. Some groupings which were used only once were collapsed. And since we had completed work on stateful GMPLS, we also added stateful GMPLS capability into the Yang model. And some examples were updated, and with the help of a tool, they were validated as well. So at this stage, this document is quite ready for working group last call. We can see all the dependencies on the right-hand side as well. And even the dependency that we were worried about, which was IETF TLS client and server, they are making progress in netconf. So I think it's the right time to send this document and last call this. And since I'm the author of this document, Julian would be running the process. The next one is our SRv6 document. It underwent 2 updates. There is already an INA allocation which is done. The authors enhanced the security consideration section, and mainly all the other changes were editorial. And since we already have one document in RFC editor queue which is waiting for this, we should prioritize this and last call this and send it out of the working group pretty soon. So if anybody has any comments, doubts, please feel free to join the queue, and authors or anybody else who has concerns on these documents, this is your time to use it. Otherwise, I will continue with the next document. Some of the documents which are almost ready but did not have much update between the 2 IETFs are the native IP and FlexGrid. We will be taking them up soon. So if you want to review them and make sure that they are up to date, this would be a good time to do that. One document which did not see any progress, neither from the chair side or from the working group. In the last meeting, we asked for more feedback on what we could do about the enhanced errors document. We still have no ID which is currently using it. We thought stateful interdomain could be one, but there hasn't been an update on that. And we haven't received any feedback. But as a working group, we have to make a decision on what we are going to do with this document. We are still listening, so reach out to us if you have an opinion on this. The other working group IDs, we have a path segment. With this path segment, there has been no change, but one thing which I wanted to, from the chair's point of view, we wanted to highlight is currently this document is listing 2 mechanisms via it allows path segment allocation via path segment TLV. It also allows the PCCC mechanism to allocate path segment. So we want to make sure that we have the working group backing that both these mechanisms should be supported, or do we need to discuss and support only a single one of these? So this discussion has not happened, and we feel that this document is otherwise ready. So this is the only open issue that we could see. So if the working group or the authors have any opinion on this, please come now or use the mailing list to discuss this further. But this is one issue that we will be tracking. And seeing nobody jumping the queue, I'll continue. The next one is the bidirectional SR path. It had no change, and we feel this document is quite ready for last call as well. So if anybody has any concerns or authors have any opinion, please let us know. And all this information is also captured in the wiki. So if you would like to go and update the wiki, please do that. The wiki is for the whole working group, not just for the chairs. So please provide inputs in the wiki as well as your document is. If the document has any issues or needs some help from others, etc. I see Cheng coming in, so go ahead, Cheng.
Yeah, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So no comments, just thank you. Thank you for the work. We do really think the pause segment and SR bidirectional pause drafts are ready for the working group LASCO. So thank you for the work. Yep, that's it.
Cheng, regarding the question that we have on the this, that we have two mechanisms, is there any opinion of the authors that yes, we need to continue with the both mechanisms in the draft? That's the current
Let's go for
thinking.
both mechanism right now, and if someone propose some comments on the mail list, let's discuss it directly. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So next one, we have SR policy drafts. This one had an update. This update made an update in the invalidation TLV for traffic steering for a down and an invalid LSP. So please review if you have any concerns with this update. With PCCC SR, there was another update, and the main technical change was there was text added for Anycast SID allocation, which was missing. So I think this is a good update that they have done, and please review. Regarding the multipath draft, there were multiple updates. Main updates were in multipath opposite direction path TLV. They also added an implementation status section, which lists 3 existing implementations, which is very good to know. And the early allocation has also been done for this draft. So good progress is being made in the multipath document. The other document that we have is the state sync between the PCEs. 2 updates, adding implementation status, adding manageability consideration, and one open issue, at least from the chair's point of view, is this document has a section on how primary and secondary PCs are selected, and it is done based on priority, but how this priority is advertised is currently out of scope of the document. So we want to get feedback from the working group that whether it is acceptable, that yes, let that be outside. This could be done via configuration or Yang. And of course, in future, it can also be done by capability like advertisement, etc. But it's okay to be out of scope of the current document. So we want to hear inputs from folks, especially on that point. Next document we have is optional. This is like marking objects as optional to process in case of stateful PCE. And implementation status was added, but it currently lists there are no known implementation. I wanted to poll the working group that please let us know, please let authors know if you are implementing any of the working group documents so that it can be captured in the implementation status section. And I fear that there might be an implementation for this, but we don't have the data. So please reach out to the working group chairs and authors for this. The stateful interdomain saw no change between the last IETF, and the SR P2MP policy had an update, and it was on mainly editorial changes so far. And now we are coming to I think the final sets of the document, which were kind of recently adopted. We had the L2 flow spec. This document was updated. They added a manageability consideration, and they are trying to keep in sync with flow spec V2 work that has been done in IDR. So that is good. We have the document for algorithm, SID algo. This was adopted in Feb, and currently the comments which were received during adoption are still pending. So we request authors to make an update. I see Samuel in the queue. Please go ahead, Samuel.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment the update for Hidalgo draft. I collected the feedback from multiple sources, and there were some conflicting opinions. So basically, I tried to bulk the update in one shot, so that's causing the delay. But as discussed between the authors, we will change the strategy and we will do partial updates to at least update the draft based on the comments which were received during the adoption, and basically to make progress faster.
Perfect. One suggestion I would also make is, like, wherever you guys have not able to make a conclusion, you can put an editor's note in the document. It would be easier to track for chairs as well as other working group members on where the disagreement is, and easy to provide you inputs as well.
Yep, makes sense. Thanks for suggestion.
Thank you. Next, we have Path MTU. This is SR Path MTU document. When we adopted this document, we made a decision that a companion document in Spring needs to be produced, and authors have produced this. They presented this in the Spring session today as well. And some of the text from the PCEP document has now moved to Spring, and it will now be making progress in the Spring document as well. So thanks, authors, for tracking this and closing. One update that has happened in the document is there is a section which now updates RFC 5440, especially with the handling of metric pound. Because Path MTU is a little different, the other metrics usually look for maximum. Here we have to look for minimum. So some text change had to be done to allow SR Path MTU to be carried inside a metric object. So please review this part and provide comments. And the authors also added a section for multipath, which is pretty good. So thanks for updating the documents and adding more text. The IFIT document, which was, I think, our latest document that we have adopted, it's also on the agenda, so no point discussing. Let's move on to the adoption queue. So the adoption queue is in the wiki. Some of the documents are listed here. Please give feedback to the chairs. If you feel some other documents needs to be put up first, give your reasoning, and we would, of course, be open to reshuffling things as and when. So please be more vocal, reach out to us so that we can help make progress in the working group pretty soon. And with this, I think this would be the last slide. Open mic, any working group status related things that we want to talk about? Otherwise, we'll move to the first presentation. Okay, thank you. So let me, Samuel. Yes, Samuel, I'll be giving you slide control. You should have it now.
Yeah. Thank you, Drew. Hi all, I'm Samuel Sidel from Cisco. I'll be presenting draft about PCEP extensions for circuit style on behalf of authors. It was presented on last IETF as well, so I'll just summarize content of this draft and updates which were done after that. The draft is extending PCEP to satisfy requirements of connection-oriented transport services using segment routing policies, also called circle style SR policies. There is second draft which was presented in Spring working group and which was presented in PC working group in last IETF, which is describing those requirements like a strict bandwidth guarantee, end-to-end protection by hop behavior, and how existing features should be used. Existing features defined in existing PCEP RFCs or drafts. This draft is covering gaps in PCEP for two specific requirements from the list which I have mentioned. More specifically, path persistency, which means also sticking to already computed path and not modifying it in case of various triggers like topology updates or periodic optimization and this kind of stuff. And hop by hop behavior, which practically means that computed path will use adjacency sets only. I will describe details later. So the draft introduced new TLV for blocking path recomputation or path optimization based on various triggers like PC topology or periodic recomputation. And we have received feedback that there is not many use cases for such granularity. So TLV was simplified by removing those flags. As a result, TLV was also renamed to follow updated content of the TLV and moved from LSPA object to LSPA because we interpreted updated content of the TLV as LSP attribute or behavior, which logically belongs into LSP attribute object. There is a recent comment from Drew to actually move it back to the LSP object, so maybe another discussion will be needed. But yeah, that will be done after this IETF. New flags were introduced to cover scenarios which are not specific to circuit style policies, but which logically belongs to functionality described in this draft. P flag for allowing or blocking modification of computed path if original path is already invalidated. So the TLV now allows both options: stick to computed path even if path is invalid and keep LSP in down state, or allow path modification if LSP would be down. Second flag is for controlling if explicit request from operator for updating path is allowed. Here we are talking about request coming from PC side. For example, some CLI executed on PC side, any normal interface request received on PC side or anything like that. One more additional minor clarification was made in the draft. We allowed modification of computed path if actual adjacencies are not changed. So, for example, if operator will change manually assigned adjacency seed to different one on same topology link, then PC can still recompute the path or basically update the path to new seed which is assigned to same link or same adjacency. Second requirement covered by this draft is clarifying usage of existing goal flag in stateless messages and introducing new flag for stateful PSET messages. Only minor change were done in this area since last IETF, which generalized definition of strict path to make it more future-proof. For example, for cases where new seed type will be introduced and which will not be defined in this draft. Original definition specified explicitly usage of adjacency seeds only for strict hops. Now we are using them only as an example, and we are clarifying that PC can use only seeds which will pin traffic to specific adjacencies. And we are explicitly blocking usage of prefix seeds, even if there is just one path between two nodes. Thanks for listening, and any comments, any questions are welcome. We are still discussing backward compatibility handling and addition of new and potential addition of new capabilities to negotiate support for these features. And we have also received some feedback after publishing the last version of the draft, so new changes will be coming soon. Any questions? Any comments?
I see Adrian in the queue, so Adrian, go ahead.
Hello, it's Adrian. Thank you for presenting, Sam. Just looking at the recompute bit of this and trying to understand, and I just reskimming the draft. It's applying to a delegated path, yeah. So that's a path that's been established in the by the PCC and then delegated back to the PCE, and saying, okay, PCE, you're now the owner of this, but you're not allowed to recompute a path. In that case, why would you delegate?
So there are multiple flags. As you can see on this slide, there is, for example, force flag, which still allows PC to update the path, but only if operator explicitly requested it from PC side. And also there is permanent flag, which basically means that PC can still recompute, but it will recompute only if original path is invalidated. So basically, if there is better path, then PC will not be allowed to send any updates for the path. But if path is invalidated, that it can still update the path to basically fix it, to make sure that policy or LSP will not be invalidated or will not go down.
Right, and you have I suppose I could construct use cases, but you've got a use case that is actually driving this distinction for you.
Yeah, so I mean the main use case which we originally tried to cover by the recomputation TLE was still keeping delegation where the PC can drive the path, so it can still tear down the LSP. It can still, for example, tear down one candidate path of the policy if it considers that another candidate path is better for some reason. So the intention here was just to make sure that PC will not change the path. It will not change frequently, and to make sure that the path will not be updated in most of the cases. But there will be still some exceptions where the update of the path is needed, or maybe at least the tear down of the LSP can be controlled by the PC.
Okay, thanks. I hear you. I'm not convinced, but we can think about it.
Next is Andrew, and while Andrew is walking in, this is the second time this comment has come in, and if you remember, like I think one of the first time when this was presented, the same comment was made that why are we delegating when not re-optimization? So I think it's best to add some text in the document so that this question doesn't keep coming up. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I figured I'd just add a bit of a concrete example. So, you've got your PC in the network, you've got your LSPs, you want to establish them, you want to establish primary, secondary, diverse paths, delegate to PC. PC can do all its computation magic to establish the path. And at that moment, you don't want to deviate from those specific resources. However, under certain conditions, like for example, bandwidth, PC is aware of the bandwidth reservations in the network. The local node isn't. So you might have BFD running on the LSPs, everything's happy, but the PC can detect a use case where, well, I've got you established on a path. I've been instructed to not move you around because traffic fluctuations, but I'm allowed to tear down. So for example, if your primary path is active, let's tear down the primary so that way you go through the secondary because the secondary still has enough capacity. So I figured I'd just give a concrete example. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew, for that example.
Are there any more questions? One thing which came up during the spring presentation as well was I think we need to be a little careful with what content we are putting in the spring document and what is going to be in this. Current document is focusing on extensions, which is very good. But I think even from the spring document, things which are very PCEP specific, where we are talking about how PCC delegates things to PCE or more PCEP specific things, I think could be moved to this document. And my suggestion would be to keep spring document as general as possible. And if you want to use PCEP, use it as an example. But the spring document should be not specific to PCE, so that in future, if somebody wants to do BGP work for this, it is pretty straightforward and the document doesn't seem very PCE heavy. So I see Christian is here as well. So maybe you or Christian can discuss and figure out what's the best way to distribute the text.
Yeah, we can discuss that, but basically even original idea was to keep the spring document or keep second draft as informational, which is describing all the technologies or all the features which needs to be connected together for the CS policies, and then this draft will basically cover any extensions which are needed on top of existing drafts or existing implementations, existing RSCs. So yeah, we can discuss that with any other separation would make sense, but yeah, maybe even another draft would be needed in such case to basically split the informational part, which is connecting all the features together, and the extensions which are needed. Yeah, but we can start the discussion, and we can try to clarify if there are any arguments against or for this specific approach, which was already taken.
Thank you. And one last point, which is, I think, the continuation of discussion that we had during the last time. I do not have a very strong opinion, but I just want the working group to be thinking about this. And this was a comment even Pawan made in the chat in the spring working group, where he said that should we think of this as a well-known path profile or a policy in terms of PSEP, or whether we should think of this as a very specific thing called circuit style SR policy, or should we think, like, if use cases like this are going to keep popping up, should we think of defining some well-known path profiles or well-known policies and then using our policy framework as a way to do this, or should we do separate TLV, separate flag as currently being done in this document? So I just want the working group to think about it. And currently, I think most of the authors and the working group likes what's there in the draft, but I would like us to be cognizant that if this is the direction that we are taking, it might have an impact for us in future as well. So if anybody has any thoughts on this, comments on this, we have some time. We have a light agenda, so please come and let's use this time to discuss. I see Andrew coming in.
I was just going to mention something that we've tried to do in this document is try to make these bit flags reusable in other use cases. So while the document is described as circuit style SR policy, obviously the overall solution now has been moved to Spring. So I think from the PCE side, these flags are not necessarily just specific to circuit style SR policy, but it kind of encompasses that whole solution. So at the end of the day, nothing's stopping somebody from reusing these TLVs in other use cases as well. Thanks.
Valid point. Okay.
I just
Thank
wanted
you.
sorry.
Yes, Samuel, go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that if anybody else has different opinion, we are discussing this opinion in the mailing list as well. So feel free to express the opinion in mailing list. At least, believe I remember correctly, your comment is discussed on the mailing list, right? So
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Fan. I'll pass on control to you.
Okay, this is Fan Yang from Huawei, and on behalf of the other co-authors, I would present this PCEP extensions to redundancy policy. And here's some background of the redundancy protection and the redundancy policy. And the redundancy protection is a generalized protection mechanism that's used in the context of the segment routing paradigm. And as shown in this figure, it replicates the packets on the redundancy node and transmit the copies of the packets over the multiple destroying paths. And on the merging node, it transmits the first accurate and eliminate the redundant packet. Overall, we have currently we have four drafts introduced this redundancy protection mechanism. And the first draft introduced the redundancy seed and redundancy segment and merging segment in the data plane to specify the behavior of the replication and elimination. And second draft introduced this redundancy policy in control plane to instruct the multiple redundancy forwarding paths. from the controller to the redundancy node. And the third draft introduced the BDP extensions to advertise the redundancy policy attribute. And the last one is this drafted the PCP extensions. Actually, it includes several content. First is the request. First is to request the path computation and the protection method from PCC to PCE, and also advertise the redundancy policy attribute from PCE to PCC in control plane. And also some background of the redundancy policy. It is defined as a variant of the SR policy with minimum changes. So it inherits the main structure and most of the attributes from SR policy. Actually, it is enhanced by import a new optional flag attribute at the candidate path. At the candidate to the candidate path. And we think it should be applied for both SR MPRs and SRv6. So I summarized the PCP extensions here. Firstly, two new TLVs of the request parameters object to support this. To support the request of the redundancy path commutation and protection method, and another new TLV to distribute the flag attribute of the redundancy policy from PCE to PCC. Yeah. And the first sub-TLV of these RP object is called redundancy protection TLV. Actually, there are two fields in this TLV. The first is the flag that we use 8-bit bitmap to indicate the constraint of the path computation, and one flag is used to indicate it is the redundancy path computation requirement. And the second is the number to indicate how many redundancy forwarding paths in PCC requires. And this message is and this TLV is carried by the request and response to between the PCC and PCE. The second sub-TLV is called the protection type TLV. We use 4-bit value to indicate the protection type of this path computation, because the redundancy protection, actually it is a protection mechanism. So we think based on the previous protection mechanisms, we actually introduce a new mechanism for the protection. So it might need some modification to define the protection type. So here we introduce a new TLV. I also see there are requirements. There are comments from Drew on the mailing list, and to discuss that if we need to define a new TLV, or we need to do some research to backward compatible to the existing implementations. I think we will discuss it among the co-authors, but right now we propose a new sub-TLV to enhance the protection type. The last TLV defined. It is encoded in the SR Policy Association group. It is called the candidate pass flag TLV, because as we just introduced in the redundancy policy, to one optional attribute flag is introduced to the candidate pass. So in PCP that we introduce a new candidate pass flag TLV to carry the flag of the candidate pass. And in the current design of the redundancy policy, only one bit of the flag is defined. So that is the redundancy flag. So similarly here, that we use one bit of the flag to indicate the redundancy flag. And here is some considerations. So this is a 0.0 revision of the draft. So we seek for the discussions on mailing list from working group, and we will also keep aligned with progress in spring, the progress of the redundancy policy discussion. And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Fan. Are there any questions? I have a couple, maybe we can discuss. The first one that I have would be the document that we have in the spring about the redundancy protection. This one is very SRv6 specific. So the first thing that we would have to do is, since all the other documents are saying that they will work for both SR-MPLS and SRv6, we have to make sure that we have a mechanism for SR-MPLS for basic redundancy protection SID. Is there any thoughts on this? Am I missing something? Is there any discussion in the spring that the PC working group is not aware of? So you can maybe enlighten.
Initially, that we would like to define this redundancy protection for the SR MPRs and SRv6. But later when we discuss because this redundancy protection is triggered by the DETnet pre-auth functions. So, but in the DETnet, there is already RFC discussed the MPR's data plane. The similar functions in MPR's data plane. So we didn't think we haven't dove into this into the specifications of the MPR's data plane. So I think it is some kind of missing there, but we will. I think we'll discuss and find a better way to fill in the gap here. And I see.
Thank you.
I see Janos in the queue, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Janos.
Go ahead.
With Ericsson. I just also wanted to bring up that it's basically coming from DETnet, the packet replication elimination functions, and maybe coordination with DETnet might be good as well. That's it. Thank you.
I think they have a document in DETnet.
Okay.
Is this on the agenda this time? The enhanced, this document is not. Oh, sorry. This was only in Spring and BGP. Sorry, my bad.
Oh,
Anthony, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not this one.
Hi, Anthony Somerset Liquid. Can you just go back to the TLV slide? I think the second one. Is there a maths issue because it says reserved 24 bits, but the diagram says there's the next one. The diagram's saying that there's 28 bits reserved. Just a nit for the maths.
I think just I think it's a table. Sorry.
So some other points that we also want to discuss, something that we started on the mailing list as well. which is further discussion on whether we should use RP object or try to put this inside SR policy. I think let's continue that discussion. And of course, with protection, you use the word that this is little different protection than what is already defined in PSAP. So it will be good to tell what do you really mean by that. What is the difference between redundancy protection and maybe the diversity work or protection type that we already have in PSAP? So if you need to define something new, just be very clear on how it is different from what is already there and how it will work with what is already defined. That if somebody encodes both of these, how would it interact with each other? So you need to be more careful at the time of introducing, especially for the protection.
Okay, thank you for the suggestions. Yeah, we will have some internal discussions with the causers and come back with the answers. Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me give you slide control. You should have it now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Zai from RTE. I would like to do the presentation about PCEP extensible seat verification for SRPRs on behalf of all authors. What's about the latest versions? We update our draft based on the comments from Dove and John. Thank you very much. And we use WeFlag instead of extended WeFlag and remove figure 1, the format of the SRERO sub-object, and add seed verification processing, use a 2PD code point for WeBit in another section. In this page is for motivations. Draft IETF Spring Second Road Policy describes the seed verification bit usage. Seed verification is performed when the headend is explicitly requested to verify seed by the controllers via the signaling protocol used. And RFC 8664 specifies extensions to the PCEP that allow a stateful PCE to compute and initiate TE path, as well as a PCC to request a path subject to certain constraints and optimization criteria in SR networks. This draft defines a new flag for indicating the head end is explicitly requested to verify seed by the PCE. And this is for seed verification flag. In this document, we defined WeFlag in SRERO subject for indicating the PCC is explicitly requested to verify seed by the PCE. And we also defined WeFlag in SRERO sub-object. The format of the SRERO sub-object is the same as that of the SRERO sub-object, but without the L flag, as defined in RFC 8664. The W flag has no meaning in the SRERO and is ignored on receipt and the PCE. Next is the seed verification process. On receiving an SRv6 ERO with the flag is set. Sorry, this is on receiving an SR ERO with the V flag is set. A PCC must verify seed. If a PCC verification fails for a seed, it must report this error by including the SLP error code TLV with LSP error value seed verification fails in the LSP object in the PC report message to the PCE. And the comments welcome and the IETF 110 meetings, we discussed whether the persistence of the WeBit is appropriate, And this draft aligned with the content of draft PCE SRv6 and draft BGP SR policy. So we extend a new flag in SRERO object. And we have accepted all the comments from the mail list and have updated the draft. This draft is very simple, but I think it's very useful. So we all think our draft is ready for call for adoption. So we request the chairs to consider to call for adoption. That's how I think.
Are there any comments? Samuel, go ahead.
Yep, I just wanted to support that adoption. Basically, the draft is introducing useful stuff, which is already covered in the draft. If there were no further changes, further comments from the working group for any major modifications, so yeah, I just wanted to support it. That's the message.
Thank you, Samuel. Anyone else? I just wanted to plug in this new wiki page that I have created. It is still work in progress, but like this document was something that got missed in PCE, one flag, and now we have to update the document to add that flag in PCEP. Similarly, we have algo confusion. So we need to do a little better job with coordinating between our documents. So we have started this page that can help. I put the link in the chat where we would request the authors when they are working on multiple documents in BGP, in Spring, in .NET, they can update this wiki and we can, like, as a working group, track all of this in a much better way so that we can avoid these issues like one bit not being present in PCEP, etc. So let's try to do a better job as a working group, all of us together.
Okay,
I still don't see anyone in the queue. Okay, working group, is there any other business that somebody would big up? We have around 3 minutes in my clock. Julian, go ahead.
No, nothing to add.
Okay, folks, see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow. Thank you,
Take
Brad.
care.
Thank you, Harry.
Yes, thanks for the minutes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, too.
Bye.
Have a nice break.